Welcome to the Physical Product Movement, a podcast by Fiddle. We share stories of the world's most ambitious and exciting physical product brands to help you capitalize on the monumental change in how, why, and where consumers buy. I'm your host, Ken Ojuka. In this interview, I have the opportunity to talk to Hannah Hong, co-founder at Must Love, a Los Angeles-based ice cream company founded by her and her best friend Molly. She talks about her experience working in brand strategy and innovation and how that taught her a lot about the attributes of a winning CPG brand and product. She talks about the strategy that Must Love used to get into grocery stores in Southern California and then to expand nationally from there. She also talks about the importance of maintaining relationships and how a chance meeting with a customer who loved her product in Hawaii led to an introduction to a Costco buyer. And eventually, she talks about the challenges of distributing a temperature-controlled product like ice cream in the CPG space and how being on Shark Tank forced them to embrace direct-to-consumer and just figure it out. Most of all, I loved Hannah's passion for the space, for her brand, and for her product, and her expertise about CPG in general. It was a fun interview, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. All right, Hannah, how are you doing? Thanks for jumping on today with me.
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Ken. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. Welcome to the podcast. I'm looking forward to digging into your business. You've had a lot going on, so I want to hear your story. This is going to be great.
Great.
I like to kick off the podcast with a quick quote, maybe something that's impactful to you in some way. Do you have something in mind that you could share with the audience?
Yeah, this is actually a really big, it's not catchy, but it's a guiding principle for my best friend and co-founder, Molly, and I. It's that if our business is a success, but our friendship is a failure, then we are failures.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned, you went into business with your best friend, Molly.
Yes.
And that can always be a little bit tricky. And so I'm curious, how do you make sure that you actually follow that principle?
So before we started our company together, which was like 5 years ago now, we did our own kind of self-guided premarital counseling, because starting a business together is really like getting married. It's a lot of work and it's a really big commitment, and talked about like how you really would if you were marrying somebody, like what are our values? What do we want? What are our goals? And then what are we willing to do to get to those goals? Like those kinds of just foundational questions. We spent an entire weekend basically interviewing each other to be able to verify that we were on the same page. And we did this, but Molly and I have known each other since we were like 20 years old, 19 and 20, and she's younger than me by a year. But so we've known each other for a long time, like 17 years now. So a lot of this stuff we knew we were on the same page instinctively, but I think it's still important to be explicit and to basically write it down so that for sure, and you don't leave anything unsaid or vague. Yeah. And so that was that. And we revisit that conversation around January, because people are naturally just thinking about like New Year's resolutions or their goals for the upcoming year and where they are in their lives. And so we always end up talking about it around January every year since then. Yeah.
Okay. Got it. No, that's good advice. And especially the part about revisiting it, because I think sometimes you can have these conversations early on and then things get forgotten. And
we could show you our business plan from year one versus now. Year one is...
I know, it's kind of funny. Sometimes it's actually better. It's being a little bit naive when you're going into something as hard as starting a business. Like not knowing everything is actually probably okay, especially just how hard it can be sometimes. Like, I think that's surprising to a lot of entrepreneurs. So my question was just personally, if you think about your 19, 20-year-old self, do you think you would have done it still if you knew how difficult it could be?
We were 19, 20 when we met. We were not 19 and 20 when we started the company. We started just 5 years ago, but knowing how difficult it is and continues to be, I think we still would do it. We both grew up watching our parents start their own businesses in a country where they didn't know the language and had to learn lots of new things. And I think that kind of education from watching our parents really go through the hustle and the grit to be able to find their slice of the American dream pie, like that sort of thing, it really instilled in us that kind of entrepreneurial drive. And so I think that we would definitely do it. Maybe something's differently now that we've gone through it once, but we definitely would have done it.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, it's an impossible question to answer because you don't know those things. And it's sort of like having kids. Would you have kids if you knew how difficult it could be? And it's, yeah, of course, because of all the good times. And it's definitely worth it. But sometimes it's better not to know exactly how hard some of these things are.
I agree.
Yeah, let's just jump into your background. So you mentioned that your parents are immigrants, right? Where are they from?
So Molly and I, both our parents are from South Korea, and both our parents started their own businesses in different industries and things like that. But so actually, we both grew up in Southern California, and the cultural and our family expectations were do well in school, go to college, and find like normal professional careers. Maybe don't become ice cream makers. And we did. When we graduated undergrad, Molly and I met at Berkeley. We were both business majors, and that's how we met. She became an investment banker, and I was in management consulting, like very traditional type of jobs, graduating with that degree from Berkeley. And we had like pretty typical, I would think, kinds of white collar professional jobs. And we went on to both get our MBAs and at different schools. And I specifically went to UCLA Anderson here in LA so that I could focus on marketing and work in food. That had always been my ultimate goal of getting my MBA, is to be in brand management in CPG. And so when I graduated, I ended up working at Bolthouse Farms in Santa Monica, and made like lifelong friends there. And then Molly, when she graduated, she focused actually on operations. And I think she was just more open in terms of her career search, but a priority was for her to get back to California. And she was at MIT, so really far away. And then there just happened to be an opening on my team in innovation at Bolthouse. And our boss was very like open to different backgrounds. Like you didn't have to have that traditional CPG background to come work for her. She just cared if you were smart and if you had a passion for the industry and you had a creative problem solving mindset. And she interviewed Molly. I like slid her resume across the desk as if like she was just someone I knew from college, not like my actual best friend who was my matron of honor or maid of honor at my wedding. So I like totally played it down that I would have been flipping out if she didn't get the job. But so she of course got the job because she's amazing. And at the time, still nobody knew we like were actually best friends. And I think that facade lasted for about 2 hours into her first day. And then people were like, you guys know each other really well. And it's, yes, we're actually best friends. And then so we worked together in CPG innovation at Bolthouse, and it was during that time that she made for me banana and ice cream. And that was like the beginning of everything.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely want to dig into that. I'm just curious, what did Molly study at MIT? What did she do?
She got her MBA too.
Okay, got it. Okay. So what does innovation look like at Bolthouse Farm? What kind of stuff were you doing?
Well, the stuff that never launched, I don't think I can talk about.
Okay. All right.
And you know, but working for any like larger CPG company, there are a lot of like research hurdles, I guess I would call them, that you have to meet to be able to launch something. And now having launched my own products, I understand, because the investment is huge to be able to bring something to market at a scale that makes sense for like a Fortune 500 company. Bolthouse at the time was owned by Campbell's. So you have to be able to bring something to market that is big enough. But sometimes when you have innovation ideas, they're like, especially if it's like a groundbreaking category, it's really hard to quantify that. So I think a lot of the time in innovation was spent on trying to quantify that and trying to make sure that the product was the right product for our company. That said, Bolthouse is like incredibly entrepreneurial. I think it still is. I still have friends who work there, and the way they approach innovation was you had to do some of that, but there was a lot of room for you to fight for ideas if you had heart for it, even if the numbers didn't quite like, it wasn't like a slam dunk case. And I really appreciated that about the leadership team there, that they grew an innovation team that was allowed to do that.
Okay, got it. And it sounds like you enjoyed what you were doing and you had a good time there. So tell us sort of the evolution. What happened next? You mentioned that Molly made you banana ice cream, right? What's the context of that?
Yeah, I did love my job. And I think it's working in innovation and marketing at a food company is like the best job ever. So I loved my job. But when Molly made for me banana and ice cream, it's at the time, it was just frozen bananas in a food processor with a splash of almond milk. You'll see it on Instagram and Pinterest, like everywhere. I had no idea what this product was or this recipe. She just made it for me after dinner just because she had frozen bananas in her freezer and we wanted ice cream, but both of us are lactose intolerant. And she was like, oh, you know what we can make? And then she made this. And it blew my socks off because it just hit all our needs and more. Like she and I are both lactose intolerant, but it was just bananas and almond milk, super clean, just real fruit. You could feel good about eating it. And it tasted amazing. Like it was like super soft, like it was like eating soft serve. And when I tasted it, our day jobs are thinking about consumer insights and how to bring the right product to market. When I tasted it, like it just, I immediately understood the consumer insight there because I'm and Molly, we're the consumers. And I was just like, why is no one packaging this? Because this is an incredible product. And then we froze that very batch in some just Tupperware from the house and put it just in our home freezers. And then the next day when I tried to eat it, I realized why absolutely no one packaged it because it froze like super, super hard, like a rock. And I guess like I could have just been like, oh, I guess that's why, and left it at that. But I couldn't get this product out of my head. And I just felt instinctively, like in my gut, like this product might have legs. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I kept iterating on like different recipes in like a home, like those home ice cream makers, the kind where you freeze the bowl in a freezer. Like you might make ice cream with your kids using a product like that. It's not like a professional ice cream maker, but I had one and so did Molly. And so we would just make like different batches, trying to figure out how to make a product that met the consumer expectation of that occasion, which is scoopable ice cream right out of the freezer. But staying true to the ethos of the inspiration, right? Like it being made with bananas and being really wholesome and recognizable ingredients. And then we got close to there. And as soon as we got an MVP, a close enough product, I immediately quit my job. I was just like, I really believe in this. I'm going to do it. And I just quit. And I didn't even have a business plan, to be honest. But Molly took more convincing and she needed a business plan. So she made us write one and then she left. And so then we've both been full-time on it for 5 years now. Sorry. Once you ask me a question, I like launch into my spiel and then I don't know where to stop sometimes.
No, it's great. And I'll be honest, that's why I love talking to entrepreneurs. It's just the passion just comes through and we can definitely sense that. And that's awesome. So a couple questions about that. Were you calling it Nice Cream? Like, where did that name come from? Were you calling it that early on?
I think that's just what people call it. It's like not
Google
something
it right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also, so it sounds like you were thinking about it as a product and as a business pretty much from the time you tasted it. Was Molly thinking the same thing or no?
I think that's our mindset because we're business people. We always thought we would do something together one day. And we just didn't realize it was going to be ice cream. But I do think that is how she thought about it from the beginning too. But she's the more measured one. I'm the one that flies off the handle a little bit. So I was willing to take the leap right away. And she needed a little bit more time and concrete steps to be able to like feel confident in plunging into like full time. Yeah.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And probably why you guys make such a great team. So the other question is, you had obviously experience researching and really digging into these other CPG brands, but for maybe somebody that doesn't have that same experience, like what about it made you think that it would be a good potential CPG product? You talked a little bit about the product ethos and things like that, but what about Did you even think about any of the metrics, the margins in a product like that? Did you take any of that kind of stuff into consideration?
Yes, of course. And like I kind of mentioned earlier, how what I really appreciated about our former employer is that they left room for ideas just because you had heart for it to be able to fight for those ideas. And I am definitely like a more gut driven marketer. Like I had a feeling. And so that makes me sound crazy, I know, but that's like your instinct. And maybe that comes from years of training. But my instinct was that this had legs. And with that, we still needed a business plan for us to be able to execute. And we did do our due diligence. Does this meet like at least some minimal threshold margin that we see line of sight to? Because let me tell you, we did not meet those margins year one because you're not buying things by the pallet at that time. So could we see line of sight to a sustainable margin? Is there, of course, consumer appetite, that was what I had my gut feeling on. Like, there is consumer appetite for this, but is there retailer appetite for this? And if you have something that doesn't require you to maintain a certain like temp state, so if you sold like granola bars, for example, or like chips that can be shelf stable, it might not be as important immediately, but eventually you're going to get to a point where you have to think, is a brick and mortar retailer going to take this? And but for us, because we have a temp controlled product, it has to stay frozen. Melted ice cream is essentially garbage, so it's trash. So like it has to stay frozen during the entire value chain. Going wholesale is the easiest way to. It's like the most. It makes the most sense, and that's also how people still mostly buy groceries, especially things that are temp controlled. We knew that we needed to prove out that a retailer would be interested. And so that's why when we first started our operations, amongst many reasons, but one of them was that we needed to start small to just test if any retailers would take this, because we didn't want to gamble everything and like sign a year-long lease somewhere or something like that and not have any proof of concept. And so we took that MVP recipe I mentioned and then started making it in a kitchen that you would rent by the hour. So every hour we could make literally, I think at most, because of the size of the machine we were using, like 20 pints of ice cream. We never made enough ice cream at that time to even pay for that hour of renting that kitchen. So like we knew though, however, it was like an investment in our idea to test if it was worth investing more, because obviously, even though we never paid for that hour with the product we made, if we leased like a kitchen and bought bigger scale equipment, that would have been like cash out the door immediately and a much bigger investment without any proof of concept. So that was how we approached it. And we walked the door to like natural grocers, independently run mom and pop shops here in Los Angeles, and made our first few sales calls ourselves. And those were hilarious, let me tell you. So, but well, yeah, those were our benchmarks. Yeah. Sorry.
I want to hear about, so a lot to unpack there, but I want to hear about this sales pitch, right? So you've made this MVP of this ice cream. You've got, I assume, 20 pints or not a ton, but you walk into a grocer and what do you say?
The first pitch we did was at this local specialty grocery store in downtown Los Angeles called Grow. And we're still carried there. It's my first account ever. And we walked in and I did not know how to purchase ice cream packaging in small quantities. And so instead, I just went to Smart and Final and purchased the only packaging I could find that seemed close enough. And they were clear deli cups. So basically like the stuff you put hummus in. Like they looked like hummus containers, and our ice cream was made with bananas and dates. So they also looked like hummus at the time too. So I had that packed in a cooler with dry ice. And then we just walked in and this is so typical big CPG, right? Like I had a 20-page PowerPoint presentation on the product and who the consumer is and why we're a fit for this retailer and all these things. We showed him the samples and started going through the deck. And he was just like, I'm just going to stop you right here. It was like after one slide, he was like, I'm just going to taste it. And he grabbed a spoon out of his like pen cup like he had on his desk and he just tasted it. And he was like, I like it. When can you bring in a case? And that was it. Oh, no, he asked, do you have packaging? Because it was obviously in like hummus containers. So then I was like, yes, I was like, there's mock-up packaging. And so he was like, cute. Okay, that looks good. When can you deliver? And that was it. That was my first sales call. And And I think what it really taught me though was like, at the end of the day, taste is what matters. And you need all the like product attributes to really move and all those things and for it to make sense, but you need to be able to taste the product. And especially when you're a tiny brand, you need to get to the point real fast.
So had you set up an appointment with that buyer?
I did. I called in advance to ask if I could speak with the manager or the store buyer, and they gave me an appointment. But sometimes that's not possible because if you imagine like what goes into running a independently run grocery store day to day, like that person is incredibly busy. So sometimes I would show up to try to get an appointment, but then I would also be ready to pitch them right there, which again, if I had a shelf stable product would be a lot easier because you could just keep that in your car. But I had to always have like coolers and go buy dry ice and have things like temp controlled, which was really challenging. I'm starting from the ground up. I need my first few doors to make sure this product makes sense. Like I was willing to do that, of course, and make sure that we had the opportunity for the sale when the opportunity presented itself. I think that's really important.
So besides the taste, what else do you think that the buyer liked about your product and about you guys and your brand?
Yeah, and our product has gone through iterations from that very first MVP. Like it's only gotten better, but we've always stayed true to the inspiration. So we always use real recognizable ingredients, simple recipe, and are of course plant-based. And it's sweetened with real fruit. At the time, we only had a line made with bananas, but today we have a line made with oat milk, and so it does not taste like bananas for those banana averse. So we have a line of pints, which is what we started with, and we also have a line of novelty bars, chocolate dipped ice cream bars, and they're all plant-based, all sweetened with real fruit, no refined sugar, and most importantly, very delicious. And so I think those things are the things that still resonate with consumers today. When we talk to our consumers, they always say the reason why they tried our product for the first time is because of the clean ingredient list, but why they come back is because it tastes good. So I think product's slightly different from back then, but it's still the same in the most important ways.
Okay, got it. And you laughed a little bit about your 20-page, presentation, your PowerPoint that you had ready. And was Molly going with you, or was that just you
Yes.
at that first meeting?
No, it's a whole thing. The two of us go and I say, "Hi, I'm Hannah." And she goes, "Hi, I'm Molly." And we say in unison, "We're the co-founders of Must Love." It's like
there you go. So you can laugh about the 20-page presentation. Why is that funny, and how have you changed that when you talk to buyers today?
I think obviously, when you work for a really big company, there's a lot more time that the buyer gives you because you're a category leader or you're the category captain of whatever. And so you have a lot more information to share, like stuff from syndicated data and things like that. So that's why those decks are so long when you work at a big company. That was our training, and we thought that we needed to have that kind of information. But when you're a small company, you are pretty much on the cutting edge of innovation, is my opinion, because you are willing to try things that big companies aren't quite ready to do yet. And so that's the value you're bringing to the meeting, is showing them like what you're doing, what your product is, and showing them the consumer insight that you're seeing that the big companies aren't. And so the way we approach these buyer meetings, I think we shed some of that like more corporate polished suit, I guess, and are just more ourselves and just sharing more about us. Because I don't know I know the category, but I'm not going to have as much information at my fingertips as like Unilever. Like they're going to know way more than me about category trends based on data. Like I don't have that kind of information to share, but I can share from a consumer perspective what we're seeing and why our product is doing so well.
Okay, awesome. So let's fast forward a little bit. There's a couple big milestones. It looks like you were able to raise some money from friends and family, and then continue to build your brand. It looks, at least from what I read, you were able to then raise from, I guess that round that you raised, I'm reading 1.4 million. Is that accurate? From friends, family, and institutions? Is that right?
I think that's all in of the many small little rounds, but yeah.
Okay, cool.
Like not all at once.
Yeah, obviously, the fundraising is just something that I think any entrepreneur needs to get familiar with, and the process, what worked, what do you think investors were looking for, that kind of thing. So I just wanted to dig into that for a second.
It really depends on your stage, and I think even still though, like the thing that is most important is the founders, because we're still looking for people who are investing in basically me and Molly. But those first few phone calls, especially the ones that were to my actual literal friends and family, I'm asking my friends and family to trust me. So that's who they are investing in. And it's, you can and obviously you have to have your basic information and your numbers and things like that, and it has to make sense. But at the end of the day, that is what they're investing in is you. Even now, when we talk to potential investors or anything like that, of course, the business case needs to make sense, but ultimately they're still investing in Molly and myself as the leaders. I think that is something you can't overlook.
Yeah. Makes sense. And we went through a friends and family round as well. And one of the things that I realized is that a lot of times, a friend or even family's perception of you and your trustworthiness it's built over the entire relationship, right? So this just happens to be the business that you're doing and the specific circumstance, but their trust in you and their confidence in you is built over years and years.
Let me tell you, I don't know if you felt similarly, but those first initial asks I made, because they were from literal friends and family, I always wanted to puke while doing it because I'm always so nervous. You're asking someone who personally to trust you with their money. And and it's I don't know. I was so uncomfortable at first because I just felt so weird having doing that. But after the first few, you get a little bit more used to that queasy feeling and you just fight through it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I had that experience too. And I had this one where it's actually my wife's sister's family, right? So my wife's sister and her husband that ended up investing, and they were grateful that I even considered them and asked them to invest. And it was almost, okay, here's an opportunity. I obviously really believe in it. Let me tell you about it. I would feel bad if we blew up and this company really, took off and I didn't even mention that this was an opportunity. And so, I don't know, it's nice to think about it from that perspective as well. And it's how I would feel. Let's say that my brother was starting this hot new company and it was taken off. If he didn't present me with the opportunity to get involved or to put a little bit of money in, I think that I'd feel a little shortchanged. So I don't know. It's interesting to look at it that way.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I wish I had that point of view earlier. I think it's a mindset thing, right? Coming from a place of having to ask for something versus offering an opportunity.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, so you guys raised a little bit of money, you got off the ground. Let's talk just a little bit about those years leading up to, and then you guys were just on Shark Tank. So I want to make sure that we cover that. But tell us just a little bit about the growth. I know it's a couple years there, but tell us about maybe a couple milestones that you were able to hit in that time frame.
Yeah, I was mentioning how we were renting an hourly kitchen. We grew very quickly to a year-long lease, our own leased space. But we were manufacturing our ice cream ourselves, because this is not how you make ice cream. You don't blend frozen bananas together to make ice cream normally at an ice cream factory. And so we honestly did not know how to co-pack it. And so we were okay, to stay true to what our inspiration is, we have to do it ourselves for a while. And so that's what we did. And until we won Sprouts. And when we got into Sprouts, and not just regionally at the time, the volume, you do your MBA throughput exercise on paper and you're like, oh, I can totally do this. And I totally could not do it. It was terrible. And I did get an A in operations for the record, but I definitely got an F in real life because it was just a lot. It's just different in real life. And we were we definitely need to co-pack, but our ice cream is very special. And so we need to find a partner who can work with us on this and really stay true to what our product is. And so that took a year and going through many co-packer tests to get to a point where we're okay, this is the co-packer for us. They understand our product with these and these adjustments. We can make what we want to make. And so we actually still co-pack with them. And
do you mind, let me interrupt there just real quick, because that step right there, that's actually one that a lot of entrepreneurs in this space struggle with. Maybe just touch on what are some of the red flags, right? When you talk to a co-packer and you didn't end up going with them, and then what is it that gave you the confidence that these guys could be a good partner with you guys?
So I think so many thoughts, but one is One is you have to understand your position of power, right? So like at the time, even today, or not even today, we're still very small, but we don't have that much power as a brand. So I am not like a huge brand that's going to buy 50% of your capacity for the year. So I don't have that kind of purchase power with a co-packer. So you're coming in from a position of less strength when you are talking to a co-packer, depending on their size. But in my category, that's the situation. And so you have to be pretty careful, right? Like you can't just be super judgy and demanding from the beginning. You have to really feel out the relationship. And it's also challenging because you're coming from a position of less power. But when you talk to them, I think something that the co-packers that we do work with has been an important trait is their willingness to learn from us and not being like, this is exactly what you need to do and how you need to do it. And this is what the recipe needs to be like. Otherwise, your ice cream is not a real product. There were co-packers who were like that, especially in the beginning before we had significant retail distribution. And so I think gauging, especially if you have like an innovative product, their willingness to work with you on doing something different is really important for us. And I think for a lot of the brands that are more innovative.
Yeah, that makes sense. A flexibility and a willingness to change their process a little bit and not just coming, okay, we're the experts here. We know how to make ice cream. This is how you have to make your product.
Yes. And inevitably, you have to get to the what's your volume, what are your minimum orders, like conversation. And I think that's an important part of making sure like you're a fit for each other. But that's something any category, any co-packer, you're going to have to get there.
Okay, got it. Anything else about that? Maybe some red flags, like things that you looked out for that would end the conversation, like these guys aren't going to work?
I think, I haven't thought about it that much because you feel so burned from the bad experiences. It's like a really bad breakup and you like want to forget about it as like quickly as possible. But looking back, I think if I think about the ones where I think like that was a mistake to work with them or that could have gone better. I'm trying to think, what are the common threads? But I think one of them would be like lack of transparency. If someone is saying all the right things to you, but then when you ask them a more detailed question or ask to be on site and they won't let you do those things, then I think you have to be like a little bit aware or worried that there might be something going on.
Okay.
That sounds like so basic. When you are so excited to start manufacturing at scale, you get blinded by the possibility of like scale or finding someone that finally will work well with you or all those things. And so you maybe ignore those kinds of red flags.
Yeah. And even furthermore, I think sometimes you get to a place where you feel like there's almost nobody that will work with you. And so you're almost desperate where you feel like, oh, you guys will do it? Okay, cool. And so then you forget to really do your due diligence, realizing,
Ken, I feel like you're looking into my soul right now. That is exactly how I felt. Like I was just like, please let this be the one, please. And then so I was willing to overlook things that normally you might have been like, why can't I be there? Like things like that. Yeah, you are so right.
I think it's just common. I've been there. I think everybody's been there. So you just don't want to make the same mistake twice. Okay. Tell us just a little bit about distribution. You said that you guys were able to get into Sprout. How did that come?
It's a real meet cute for considering. Actually, it's not like a meet cute. It's like online dating now. But they actually found us on RangeMe. And like we did not have a premium account or anything, but like someone from Sprouts reached out to us. And so we were like, oh, this is when we were literally in 40 doors, just local Whole Foods and a few those independent natural mom and pops here in LA. And so I was just very surprised to get the call or email, and we set up a meeting, and that was the beginning. And so we started regionally with them, but last year went national across the country with Sprouts and are launching 2 new items there. Our oat milk pint, first time at Sprouts. So it's super exciting. And yeah, that's how Sprouts happened. Oh, can I share how we met Costco though? Because that's, I think, the cutest story considering like our industry. So we used to have a soft serve pop-up in Hawaii, and we used to make banana soft serve. And The Hawaii Costco buyer's wife liked our soft serve, realized we had a CPG product, told her husband, he brought us in for a meeting, and then he introduced us to his LA counterpart, who is the LA buyer for ice cream for the region. Then we cultivated that relationship with her for another year before we got a test. And then we got a rotation. And so this year we'll be doing our second rotation with the LA region. It actually launches in 3 weeks. So if this airs in time, if you live in LA, please go to Costco and buy our Must Love product.
Definitely. And you said that, I guess with Sprout though, are you national?
I am, yes.
I'm wondering how I can get some of this is what I'm curious about.
I think I shipped you some. Oh, did you? Yes, I think I did. I got an address and I shipped you some. But we are at Sprouts nationally. The new oat milk pints will hit stores like by the end of this month. I think that's the reset.
Cool.
I'll send you some coupons, Ken.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll look for that shipment. I haven't seen anything yet, but I always do these around noon, and I'm like starving, and you're talking about ice cream, and it sounds great. And so anyway, I'm really craving it right now is what I'm saying, basically.
I'll make sure to get you some if you haven't gotten it yet.
Okay. So let's fast forward. How did Shark Tank come about?
Yeah, that's also, they actually approached us like a few years ago. And at the time we were it's before we were in Sprouts or right before our reset. That's when they reached out to us. And I was mentioning how my throughput exercise was not good and I was not doing well on the manufacturing. By that, I mean, I was running like double shifts, building pallets at 11 o'clock at night. Like I was just slaving away. Like it was just like really hard operationally, but that's when they approached us. And so obviously I'm not going to let this opportunity pass by. And we talked to them, and for whatever reason, we were not a fit for that season. And I think in retrospect, it's a huge blessing in disguise because I was like working round the clock, just barely making POs, like not even. My PO failure rate was really high at the time. So just pumping out ice cream and shipping it immediately, like constantly. And so if we were on Shark Tank at that time, now knowing how much time it takes to actually prepare and do the segment, and then the after effects of it, we would have not been able to take advantage of being on the show or have done a good job preparing. So I think like it's good that we got rejected that year. And then after we got national with Sprouts last year, Molly and I were talking and it was like, oh, do we still have that producer's email address from the one who reached out to us like a long time ago? And we sure did. And so we emailed him because at this point now, we felt a lot more ready operationally and marketing wise to be able to take advantage of an opportunity like Shark Tank. And so we reached out to them, and there are like many rounds of selection and like things you have to do. And we were lucky enough to be chosen to film and then lucky enough to air, because not everyone who films airs. And so we just aired 3 weeks ago now, I think. So it's real fresh in my mind.
So it's real fresh. And so what kind of impact has it had on your business, at least?
Yeah, we are a wholesale item pretty much. And so we did not have a fancy website or e-com at all. And so you find out a few weeks before your air date. And we had been trying to get a website set up, but as someone who is like not an expert in those things, it took us a really long time. And we ended up getting it all together literally 3 days before our air date. And so I like to joke that our lift from Shark Tank was infinite because our sales online before Shark Tank were zero, and you can't divide by zero. Yeah. But it was a huge, for us, it's the only e-com experience we have, but it was a steep learning curve because obviously shipping things frozen is very challenging. And I'm really glad we were able to find a good partner to work with us and in time to be able to do that. But it was real trial by fire. And we're on the other end of it now and things are a little bit more normalized. But we definitely had a lot to learn and are still, of course, learning about this.
Yeah. Who did you guys do a deal with?
On Shark Tank or?
Yeah, on Shark Tank. Yeah.
Oh, Ken, spoiler, we did not get a deal.
And you still saw a huge lift.
Oh, yeah. I don't think, and we weren't disappointed by that. Of course, being the A student that I am, that would have been amazing. But our expectation going in was not to get a deal necessarily. It was like, that would have been amazing. But it was more like, if we can tell America about our product, that's the prize. I think just being on the show is really helpful. And of course, the Sharks had only the nicest things to say about the product. So that really helped.
Yeah, very cool. So I know we're trying to wrap up here. You've got a hard stop in about 5 minutes. And let's just switch over to the quick fire round and then end with some concluding remarks.
Okay.
Are you ready for 4 quick questions?
Oh, I'm really bad at thinking on my feet, but I'll try.
All right. What's one tool or resource that you feel has helped you the most in your business?
One tool or resource? Oh, you know what? We just started using it for design, and it's new to me, and I freaking love it.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's really good for web and mobile stuff too. So, yeah. What is one book that you could recommend to?
You know, I just read, it's an older book, but it's called Focus. I think it's called Focus, but it's about marketing and what does your brand stand for. I listened to it on tape, to be honest.
I know I always feel a little guilty like saying I read it, but I'm a total audiobook junkie.
Oh my God, now I feel old. It's an audiobook. It's not a book on tape.
What is one piece of advice that you would give your 21-year-old self?
That's a hard question, Ken, but I think I would say you're not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Like you're on the right track.
Who is one person or maybe another entrepreneur or somebody in your field that you would love to take out to lunch?
Oh, Fly by Jing, or her name is Jing, but her brand is called Fly by Jing. So I think she's incredible. And what she's done in the past 2 years, I think, is how long they've been around is really exciting. And so I would love to take her to lunch. She's actually local. So Jing, if you're listening, let's hang out.
What's her product? I've never actually heard of her.
Oh, it's chili crisp oil. It's actually just went national but with Target with Lunar New Year. And they got like a huge, big promotion from it. I think it's really cool. I just love that she's like really authentic to her roots, and also being Asian American, that obviously speaks a lot to me. And her product is very high quality, and she's changing a lot of perceptions on like cheap Chinese food, because that's like the stereotype, right? And like I love all of that. And I think they do a really good job of communicating who they are and values as a company to their consumer. And I think that's like business wise, like I think she does like an amazing job of that. And so that's what I would like to talk to her about.
Very cool. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping up here, just thinking about the new year, the time we're recording this, it's the 4th of February. So it's early in the year. What do you have coming up here this next year that you're looking forward to? Any new products or anything that you could tell us about?
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So we have our Costco rotation that's coming up, and then our new oat pints hitting national at Sprouts. And we're really excited about our geographic growth. So we got some new distribution in the southeast of the United States at Winn-Dixie, and looking to grow more throughout the country. So look out, America.
Awesome. We'll definitely look out for your product. If you could give any sort of parting advice to other food entrepreneurs that may be listening, what would you tell?
I think that it's really important to find some founder friends, especially if you're a solo founder, because this is certainly a lonely journey sometimes. And at least we have each other.
No, that's great advice. And even just sometimes just to know that you're not the only one running into those problems. That itself is really valuable. Okay, Hannah, you've been a great guest. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been an awesome interview. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Okay, good luck. We'll talk soon. Bye.
All right, bye.
The Physical Product Movement podcast is brought to you by Fiddle. To find out more about Fiddle and how our industry-leading inventory ops platform is giving modern brands and manufacturers full visibility into their inventory and operations, visit fiddle.io. And then make sure to search for Physical Product Movement in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Fiddle, thanks for listening.